and we are live. The Gridiron Address is back, and he's been on quite a bit. You saw him on the draft watch along that we did. Hoops and Helmets, myself and Carson hosted. That was a lot of fun. Jason was on. It was a marathon show. I'm happy to have him back on my show, the Gridiron Address, again. Jason, I know it's May 4th. You enjoying the day so far?
Yes, Aaron. Thank you for having me on the show, and may the 4th be with you.
Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. Always a fun time.
That it is. And Jason, let's just jump right into it. The draft, obviously, it's been a week. I was going to do a recap last week, but didn't realize how long I was going to be gone, so I didn't want to do a show while I was on vacation. But we're back, and we've had a week to sit on everything that's happened, which is, it's not a bad thing. I like it. It gives everybody a chance to process stuff, but we're going to kick it off with the most surprising pick of the first round. And Jason, I think I know what you're going to say, but why don't you tell the people what you got for us?
I mean, there was a lot of surprising picks in that first round of the draft. I think there was some jaw droppers, but for me, the biggest pick was the pick that never came. And let's talk about Shedeur Sanders right now. Let's get that elephant out of the room. You know, we're all sitting there live, you know, we're doing our special, and we're just waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting for Sanders' name to get called. And they keep, you know, switching over. This is like kind of the Aaron Rodgers flashback to him being alone, sitting in the green room kind of deal. And it was shocking to get through that first night to not really hear his name. And they were like, oh, okay, well, you know, maybe day two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, okay, we'll let that slide. And then day two came. Next thing you know, you're in round 4. You haven't heard him. It wasn't until round 5 where Cleveland trades up that 144th pick to get him, even though they had already chosen Dylan Gabriel ahead of him. So that to me was the biggest shock, of course, because everybody's talking about it. So that's to me was the biggest shock of the whole entire draft, the free fall that was Shedeur Sanders. And, you know, for me, it had a couple of things to do with it. First things first, I'm going to get a little deep, but, you know, I'm going to call it like it is. This is rich white owners going to let's just say a rich African-American male telling him that you're not bigger than the shield. They wanted to make an example out of Shedeur Sanders, and they did. Whether they want to admit it or not. Now, I'm not saying this is all the teams. Look, there was only 4 or 5 teams that, you know, honestly had Sanders on the board. You know, you figure you had Oakland, you had the Browns, you had the Giants, I'm trying to think, and the Steelers. So, I mean, you had a few teams that were on the board that really wanted him. So this, to me, isn't a Illuminati thing where the whole 32 teams were all against Shedeur Sanders. This is a small fraction of it. But they proved a point. They wanted to show this kid that, hey, you're not bigger than the shield. You know, some of the stories we've been hearing of how he presented himself during the draft process, which he ultimately failed, and that's on him. You know, it's one thing, you know, when you fall like that, if you did something wrong, you have an injury. You know, we've seen guys fall because they have legal issues. We've seen guys fall because they have, you know, health issues, injury issues. But to watch somebody fall like this because of his attitude or his personality was shocking. I think that's what made it more shocking. From the football perspective, I look at it this way. Sanders, last year, 74% completion percentage, 4,100 yards passing, 37 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Solid figures. Now, compare that to, say, a Jackson Dart, who the Giants traded up to get in the first round, and who was the second quarterback picked behind Cam Ward, which was, you know, we knew Cam Ward was going 1. That was no question. But Dart, 69% completion percentage, 4,279 yards, 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So not a huge difference, but Sanders with some better numbers. Now, the one thing that was glaring to me, and I kind of
It's like we lost Jason there for a bit. Technical difficulties have become a typical part of the show. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. It might be a me problem, might not. And Jason,
did you lose me?
We did lose you for a second.
Okay. I was talking about his carries. So last year, 2024, Shedeur Sanders had 100 carries for negative 50 yards. The year before that, he had 111 carries for negative 77 yards. I'm not saying that that's bad, but to me, that is coaching. Hey, we need to coach this kid. Hey, we need to learn how to throw the ball away. Hey, we need to learn to have some positive yardage. I need to make sure that this kid is coachable. And I think ultimately, from a football perspective, that's why he fell so far. Not just because his attitude, but his attitude about being coached. You know, you weren't coming in this thing the greatest prospect since Peyton Manning. So we already knew you have the talent. We already knew you were an athletic individual, but you were going to need to be coached by an NFL coach, and you needed to be open to that. And he wasn't. He did not want to listen to anybody. You know, that again, the interview processes, the draft processes, he failed ultimately. But, you know, these NFL coaches, their jobs are on the line. These NFL GMs, their jobs are on the line with these draft picks and being able to coach these kids. And Shedeur Sanders, ultimately, the reason why he fell is because I don't think any of the coaches wanted to pick him and lose their job because they picked him real high and he didn't want to get coached. So I don't know what you think, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Aaron. But to me, again, that was the most shocking thing about this whole draft is the fall of Shedeur Sanders. Although I don't think it's hurt his popularity, he's got one of the best-selling jerseys in the NFL right now. Even though that Cleveland Browns quarterback room is a little crowded, it'll be interesting to see how he navigates that. But I hope he changes the narrative when NFL training camp starts, because he has the talent. But will he be able to be coached and utilize that talent in the NFL? Aaron, what's some of your thoughts?
Jason, I agree with you. I think that was the most surprising thing to come out of this entire draft. He was a potential top 2 pick. A lot of people had him going to Cleveland at 2 and wouldn't have batted an eye if that did happen. And it's insane. I think you're pretty spot on. I don't think the owners, the coaches want to risk it, because from a coach's perspective, you draft him high, he does bad, you lose your job, and then Deion Sanders is coming in to take your job. But Jason, I want to ask you a question. The Giants traded up back into the first to take a quarterback in Jackson Dart. Would you have rather seen them take Shedeur Sanders?
You know, that's a good question. You know, the Giants throughout their history have shown that, and again, I'm going to call it like it is, they have not drafted an African-American quarterback high in the draft. In fact, I don't think they've ever drafted a black quarterback in the draft. So I'm going to call it like it is. Jackson Dart fit the mold. He was from Ole Miss, so you got the Eli Manning connection. Ole Miss got, excuse me, guys. He's not a bad quarterback, but he won the draft process, and I think that's why ultimately the Giants traded up to get him. He has talent. He has some NFL talent. He's not the flashiest and greatest guy. He wasn't the number 2 or number 3 pick. He was, I think, maybe top 5. But the way he conducted himself, the way he handled his pro day, and the way he conducted himself in the interview process and the whole process of winning the draft, he did that. So he ultimately won a spot and being picked in the first round. I like Jackson Dart. I think he has NFL potential. Again, he fits the Giants mold. The other thing that I'm excited about is he doesn't have to start right away, which to me is always been a big thing that drives me nuts. These teams, they draft a guy first round and they just want to throw him out there and go, here, kid, win.
I mean, look at Anthony Richardson. It's not
and it could ruin this kid's career, but he's got Russ to sit behind. He's got Jameis Winston to sit behind, so he can learn how to play quarterback with a clipboard on the sideline for a year, maybe 2 years, before he just gets thrown in there. So I think this is ultimately going to help him. We didn't lose a lot in draft capital. They gave up the second overall pick, which is number 34, that 2025, the third overall pick, number 98 in 2025, and a third next year. So ultimately, to get your franchise quarterback for a couple of later round picks, to jump in the first round and make sure somebody else doesn't take him, why would you not? I'm excited to see what he does. I'm excited to see how he learns and how he progresses. But to me, being able to sit behind a Super Bowl winning quarterback and Russell Wilson is ultimately going to help him. And I think that's going to help him succeed.
And alrighty. Sorry, little brain fart there, but my most surprising pick of the first round. Now, this obviously Shedeur Sanders, most surprising thing to happen, period, in the whole entire draft. But as far as just picks, the Falcons trading back into the first to get James Pierce Jr., finally addressing that defense that they just haven't addressed. They've been taking offensive players in the first round for a while now, and that defense has suffered massively. And they got two very, very dangerous defenders out of the SEC. You got Jalon Walker with their original pick, and then you trade back to get one of the best pass rushers in the entire class in James Pierce Jr. Right. Character concerns aside, he is a very, very good football player, and this was a very un-Falcons move to see happen, which is why I have it as my most surprising pick from the first round. But, Jason, how much do you think this draft improves that Falcons defense?
They're one of my biggest surprises. I mean, you talk about hyper-focusing on a glaring need. A lot of teams tend not to do that in the draft. They'll pick maybe one or two guys late, or they'll try to address it in free agency. The Falcons said, "Nuh-uh, we're getting Jalon Walker, a stud from Georgia. We don't have to go very far. He's right down the street here. Got him from, University of Georgia, who is going to be a monster on that team. And then, hey, let's trade in and get James Pierce Jr. too. So we're going to add two top defensive players right off the gate and put them on that squad." You got Penix, who's developing really nicely, even though they said Cousins, I think, is going in as the starter, but he's not going to start the NFL season. No, I mean, it's going to be Penix. So you got Penix, you got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London. So you're going to have a great offense. Kyle Pitts, if he can ever show up, I think it'd be great. So you're going to have a great offense. So you better have a damn good defense to make up for it. And, man, their first four picks, they just knocked it out of the park. Excuse me. Very impressed with the Falcons did. They saw the need, and they attacked it with force because they saw that NFC South is pretty open, man. I mean, you got the Bucks, and then who else? The Panthers up and coming. I know we'll talk about your Panthers here in a little bit but the Saints are kind of at the bottom of the basement right now. So I think the Falcons really said, "Hey, we're going to put the pedal to the metal," and it was a fantastic draft. I mean, I don't know if these guys don't pan out. I'll be more surprised from that than anything. But they definitely won the defensive part of the draft here.
Yeah, Falcons absolutely killed it. 4 of their 5 selections this year were defensive players. I hate to see it. I hate to see NFC South teams being smart and addressing the needs that they need to address. It's
right.
Unfortunate, but moving on to the biggest reach in the first round. Jason, who do you have? And I think we might have the same player for this.
Who did I have the biggest reach? I mean, for me, it was a couple of different players. Jackson Dart was, of course, as the Giants coming in, was a huge reach for them. It was more of a surprise for them to just jump in and take that 25th pick from the Texans. So that was a huge reach. Again, not slated as a first round quarterback to jump in and take him in the first round. I think that was a huge, huge reach. But my other one, too, which was a little surprising, was the Chicago Bears at 10, taking Colston Loveland. Wasn't even slated as the number one tight end. He was kind of the second tight end expected to come off the board. Tyler Warren was expected to be that number one. So for the Bears to take Loveland, I know they worked on that offensive line all off season. I would have expected them maybe to get a running back because I know, was it Omari Hampton was still on the board too? Because you kind of expected, that Jetty Witt, that the Bears were going to kind of go for a stud running back, but to go for Loveland, the tight end, was a little curious for me, and I think that's going to be a stretch. I hope he succeeds. I think he's going to do great for fantasy football fans because the baby bear, Caleb Williams, I think he's got now another weapon to throw to, especially looks like they're going to be losing Keenan Allen, but they still got a Dunez. So to throw Loveland on there, but to not be the number one tight end, to take him at 10 was a little bit of a stretch, a little gamble right there from the Bears.
Now, for me, that's not too much of a reach. Yes, Loveland was the projected tight end one, or Warren was the projected tight end one, but it's not that big of a gap. And Loveland is a significantly better receiver than Tyler Warren. Warren has more versatility, maybe a better blocker, but Loveland is going to be great in Chicago. I fully believe that. Better receiving threat than Cole Kmet, and that Bears offense could look really, really dangerous. You got Luther Burden in there now as well, and Caleb Williams, solid rookie season. They just were on the wrong end of some really unfortunate games. I have high hopes for the Bears. I think Ben Johnson will do great things in Chicago, but Jason, you already hit on my biggest reach. I had Jackson Dart for this. That felt really, really surprising. They could have got him in the second round. I fully believe that, or traded up later. I'm not sure if any team was really going to jump on Jackson Dart, but I mean, the Giants got their guy, potential franchise quarterback, like you said earlier, and he has no pressure to start early. Like you mentioned, you got Russ, you got Jameson there, and those are two solid quarterbacks to learn from. And Dart's in a good place. New York they're doing good things there. They've got a solid offense going on, but moving on to the biggest steals of the draft. Now, Jason, I have 6 guys down here, and all these players I would not have batted an eye if they went first round, early second, and a lot of these guys didn't. And to kick it off, I got to talk about Will Johnson. Yes, he's dealing with a knee injury that is evidently lingering a lot, and teams are concerned about that. But the guy is so good in coverage. He has great ball skills, incredibly productive. He was a key component of an elite Michigan defense that won them a national championship. I don't know if Michigan makes it that far without that good of a defense, and Will Johnson was integral to it. But Jason, who's your first steal that you want to talk about?
I want to talk about, I look at value, especially in some of them deep late rounds. So I went deep. Into this draft. To me, 7th round, 228th pick, Kansas City taking Brashard Smith from SMU, the running back. Ran a 4.39 40-yard dash. Played in all 14 games last year. Started 10. 4th in the FBS with 1,977 all-purpose yards. So you talk about getting value at the running back position in the 7th round. I think this kid can be a starter in the NFL. Isaiah Pacheco has kind of not really produced, what Kansas City thought they were going to do. Heck, they used Kareem Hunt more last year than they did. I know Pacheco's been hurt. That's the other thing too, is Kansas City's had some, Kyle Edwards-Helaire, he's been hurt. So I mean, to get to me a stud running back, I think he is a steal in round 7, and I think he's going to be a starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs next year.
I mean, hey, that would be phenomenal value. It's a great pick for Kansas City. They had a really good draft as well.
Yep.
Another steal that I have to talk about is Nick Emenwari, safety out of South Carolina, who had an absolutely electric combine, 99 relative athletic score. I think one of the highest we've ever seen since that's been a thing that has been implemented. And we talked about this on the watch along. Seattle needs to bring back that Legion of Boom. The 12th man is dead. It's non-existent. Seattle used to be one of the hardest stadiums to play in the entire league, and Nick Emenwari is a step to build that back up. Bring back a Legion of Boom Part 2, super athletic safety, hard hitter. He's going to be really, really good in Seattle, and they got to build up that defense because, in all honesty, I am very concerned about Sam Darnold playing behind that offensive line. Yes, you got Gray Zabel in the first, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough, and Darnold's not good under pressure. He's going to start seeing ghosts again if he has to deal with that. I think he is better than he was in New York, but I think Kevin O'Connell and that system with the weapons that he had in Minnesota definitely helped him build back up. And with DK Metcalf gone, that's a big, big loss for Seattle. But Jason, who's another player that you think was great value at the pick?
Again, I'm digging in. I'm digging deep, man. We go deep like the mines of Minolta here. Round 7, again, 231st pick. Is that 31? I can't even read my own freaking notes. 231st pick there. The Dolphins taking Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Again, lots of great upside. You don't have to waste a ton of draft capital on him. You got him in the 7th round. I think he has some NFL talent, and he can sit behind Tua and learn the game. And then, with Tua's questions in the head and everything else that's going on in Miami, this kid can turn around and become a starting quarterback in the NFL. So to get your next quarterback in the 7th round of an NFL draft, that's kind of a Tom Brady story, talking about, getting him in the 6th round. So the Dolphins getting Quinn Ewers out of Texas, I think that's a steal in the 7th round, man. And I think he has potential to really make some noise and be something in the NFL. And he's got a great system right there too. He can sit right behind Tua. Next thing you know, Tua gets hurt, you're in the starting role, man. So if he studies and really learns the game of football and kind of does his OTAs and practice and really digs deep into it, don't be surprised to be making some noise there in Miami.
That was definitely a great place for him to land. Quinn Ewers has a lot of experience playing in college as well. Multiple year starter at Texas. Got them to the college football playoff this past season. Had a solid season with them. And I think he could have potentially benefited from hitting the portal and getting another year boosting his draft stock. But he wanted to end his college career as a Texas Longhorn, and in an era where everybody's bouncing around year after year, players are transferring 4 times in their career. I do have some respect for him sticking it out and staying in Texas. So props to him. Miami is definitely a good spot for him to land with potential to see playing time if Tua does go down, which we've seen happen almost every year. But the third player that I want to talk about is Siobhan Revel Jr., cornerback out of East Carolina, another corner who's dealing with an injury, but
still
12th pick in the 3rd round to the Cowboys. I hate giving the Cowboys credit. I hate it. I love giving the Cowboys crap, and Michael's not on. He's not in the comments, but he's going to watch this. And yes, I'm actually complimenting your Dallas Cowboys. This was a massive steal in the 3rd round. Revel is phenomenal. If he can bounce back and get healthy, he's going to be an insane addition to that secondary.
Yeah.
If he wasn't injured, he would have been a 1st round pick. I'm fully convinced of that. And we also saw him drop a bit because Group of 5 school, ECU, not really known as a football powerhouse.
Right.
whatsoever, but phenomenal player without a doubt. It's got great potential to do good things with the Cowboys, and that's a shame. But Jason, who's another player you want to talk about?
I'm going to stick with the quarterback. I'm going down a little bit. We're sliding back to the 6th round here. The 181st pick. I got to rep my Syracuse Orange, Kyle McCord, and the Eagles picking up Kyle McCord from Syracuse in that 6th round. Led the ACC in passing last year with over 4,700 yards. Started off, played in Ohio State, so he's been in a big program. Went to Syracuse, played with them. Look, another great place to land. You literally just dropped into the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. You're playing behind Jalen Hurts, who tends to get hurt. So you talk about, hey, I'm going to sit behind him. I'm going to learn. I'm going to do what I got to do. Next thing you know, he gets hurt. You get thrust into the starting position. So another great value in the 6th round. The Eagles got themselves a heck of a quarterback. And I love me some McCord. I don't think he got enough props, but for him to fall to 6 and then for the Eagles to take him, which kind of hurts, but the Eagles love their Mick quarterbacks. They love McNabb. Now they got McCord. They had I think it was McPherson. So go Cuse. Let's go. It stinks though you had to go to the Eagles, but that's a whole other
story. Not a great situation to be in as a Syracuse fan, and he goes to a division rival. But I do like that McCord pick as well. He's going to be a good backup with potential to see some starts here and there. Probably not in Philadelphia unless Jalen Hurts does get injured, because they're just so well established, and the offense is not going to look remotely the same if you have McCord in there instead of Hurts. Right. But another player I got to talk about, Wyatt Millam, guard / tackle out of West Virginia, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars with the 25th pick in the 3rd round. That's phenomenal value. I think he has the potential to be one of the best guards in this entire class. I think he goes in there and could start week 1. And look, Jacksonville, they need help just about everywhere. They were a bit of a mess last year. You gotta protect Trevor Lawrence and give him as many opportunities as possible to turn into the player that we expected him to be. We see flashes of that first overall pick potential, but not enough sustained success. And offensive line is integral to a quarterback's long-term career and their success. I think Millam is going to be great. He's got positional versatility, primarily played left tackle at West Virginia, but like we've talked about on the show before and other shows, a lot of these tackles, their arms are a little shorter than you want for an NFL tackle, but in a pinch, Millam can be moved to left tackle. You can play him at guard. You love to see that. And Jason, who's another player that you want to talk about?
I definitely like that Jacksonville pick too. And that was, just to jump back a little bit, that was one of my almost surprising picks, was Jacksonville trading up and really seeing Hunter and the value in him to trade your pick this year and then trade a 1st round next year to go get Hunter. And that was pretty shocking for Jacksonville to make that bold of a move. You didn't think they would do something like that. Hunter was touted as probably the best player overall in the NFL draft. So for Jacksonville to do what they did, that was another shocker too. But my number 4, I'm still sticking with the quarterbacks. I'm still in the 6th round here. I'm at the 185th pick. Will Howard going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming out of Ohio State. It was a phenomenal pickup for the Steelers. Again, not a lot of draft capital. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. You're not paying 1st round money on a quarterback. And I think that's, again, another reason why a lot of quarterbacks fell off this year to these later rounds, is because those early round quarterbacks, you got to pay them 1st round money. So again, we're talking value. And for the Steelers to go out and get Will Howard, look, they needed a quarterback in Pittsburgh. I think they're going to roll with who they got now. It's kind of, I think it's quarterback by committee there in Pittsburgh. It's a little rough. So Will Howard has a chance to go in there and make some noise and potentially be a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes, Jose, represent Ohio State, them Buckeyes. So Will Howard to the Steelers, tremendous value. Don't have to spend a lot of draft capital, and you potentially have a starting quarterback in your roster.
And as of right now, Mason Rudolph is the projected starter, and Aaron Rodgers is still floating around there. Pittsburgh's just about the only team
let him
left
keep
that can
floating.
take him.
Float on, Aaron. Float on.
I hope let's just see him retire. Let him do his ayahuasca. Let him have his darkness retreats.
Yes.
But,
yes. Podcast from a cave. I'd love it. Let's do it.
But I wouldn't entirely hate Rodgers in Pittsburgh. It would give Will Howard a veteran to sit behind that isn't Mason Rudolph. It would give Pittsburgh a better immediate outlook this season. I think Rodgers will play better than Rudolph or Howard. As much as I like Howard's potential, I think he could be a quality starter in the NFL, but I'm not crazy on rookie quarterbacks starting out of the gate unless they're just that good. We see it too much. They're thrown into bad situations.
Right.
Look at Anthony Richardson. He needed more time to develop as a passer before he's thrown into being a starting quarterback for an NFL team. And
Right.
Bryce Young's rookie season, you saw him play behind one of the worst offensive lines in the entire league, and it looked rough this season. He's looking a lot better. Carolina invested in that offensive line. So we're seeing some improvements from him, but it would be cool to see Will Howard start early. I don't think it would be a good thing. That would be Pittsburgh kind of just saying, okay, we're fine with just banking on our defense doing enough and maybe missing the playoffs. I don't see Tomlin doing that. I also don't know if Tomlin's going to want to put up with Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't really seem like a player who would fit in that Steelers
Is
culture.
Aaron Rodgers really the best mentor for
Probably
Will
not.
Howard? I mean, no. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not a mentor guy. But the thing that's going to help Pittsburgh is they do have some weapons. If Pickens can get out of his own way, you got DK Metcalf, who is still a monster. You went out and you drafted Caleb Johnson, a great running back. So he's going to have some weapons to kind of shield him. So even if Howard does get a start, he at least has some guys to play with. And Mike Tomlin doesn't get enough credit as a head coach, as great as he is. He puts guys in a position to succeed. So even if Howard is put out there, I have the feeling that Coach Tomlin is not going to let him just drown out there. He'll do some things to kind of help him out. So, but no Aaron Rodgers. Aaron, go away.
And another player I want to talk about is Mike Green, potential first-round pick out of Marshall, defensive end, highest graded defensive lineman in the entire country on PFF. Led the nation in sacks, absolutely insane season. Again, Will Howard, a lot of starting experience as well at Kansas State and Ohio State. Just won a national championship too. He can show up in the big games.
Yeah.
He could start early, in all honesty, but back to Mike Green, this was a guy who I really thought was going to be a first-round pick. Obviously, some really serious character concerns. He had to leave Virginia because of accusations, but ignoring that, that's why he fell, was those character concerns there. But as just a player, the talent he has, he's a first-round draft pick. And the fact that Baltimore is able to get two phenomenal defenders with their first two picks, you get Malachi Starks at 27, best safety in this draft. Potentially, I'd arguably put him above Nick Emenwari. Less athletic traits, better football player, I would argue. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be a dangerous, dangerous team. They've got to be the favorites to win the AFC North. That defense is going to be really hard to stop. You got Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, phenomenal offense. I would have liked to see Baltimore maybe get some more weapons. I feel like that's what they're really missing, is just another offensive threat in the passing game, because teams will be able to.
They added D-Hop, so I mean, if you can get, I know he's older, but if you could get D-Hop, I think if anybody can succeed with Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Hopkins is going to be dangerous with that team as a third option, because you got Zay Flowers. So, I mean, they got guys on that team. They got two amazing tight ends. So watch out for Baltimore, man. just
And they
Lamar's got to
added,
get over that hump.
I fully forgot about this. They added LeJontay Wester out of Colorado. He's undersized, but he's fast. He's got potential as a punt returner as well. That's going to be a nice depth piece for that wide receiver room. I think he makes their roster as a 6th-round pick. But Baltimore is going to be really good. Could see him making a Super Bowl run. I'll say it now. It's not out of the realm of possibility. That's a very, very good football team. But Jason, who's another steal that you want to talk about?
Well, not that I'm going to be a homer, not that I don't have all this Giant stuff and New York stuff behind me, but I got to show some love to Cam Scatterbo. I am so over the moon excited that the New York Giants went out and got this kid from Arizona State in the 4th round, fell to the 4th round. So talk about a steal. You're getting probably one of the best running backs overall in the country. 1,700 rushing yards, 605 receiving yards. So you talk about somebody that could potentially be like a CMC. So I know the Giants have Tyrone Tracy, who is a little bit smaller running back. So you talk about a 2-headed monster. You have Tyrone Tracy. Now you throw this bruiser in Cam Scatterbo, who can catch the ball out of the backfield. Now you're kind of doing that 2 running back thing that like Detroit does with Sonic and Knuckles. You're doing like what they do down in Tampa with the 2 running backs. So to have 2 stud running backs in that New York backfield to help Russ, I am phenomenally excited about Cam Scatterbo. I think he is going to fit right in New York. I got to find a cool nickname for him. I haven't thought of one yet, but it's coming. I'll get one here for him, but I am so excited. Just the stories about when he used to put his pads on and run into telephone poles to practice, all this stuff you hear about him, but severely underrated. A steal in the 4th round to get that versatile of a running back. So watch out. That Giants backfield is going to be dangerous. So if you think our front 4 is going to be dangerous, you wait for that backfield to come at you.
And Jason, while we're on the topic of Cam Scatterbo, I had some insider knowledge that in a fantasy dynasty league, you took Scatterbo. What was it? 4th overall in the 1st round, Jason?
Yes. I had in one of I'm in a couple of dynasty leagues. And in one of my dynasty leagues, I had 2 1st-round picks. I had the 4th and I had the 7th. So I'm like, and in that dynasty league, there's a bunch of Arizona State fans, a lot of Arizona guys. So if I hadn't picked him, he was going to go in the 1st round no matter what. So I picked him. And then I got Ted McMillan, so I ended up winning the 1st round.
Nice.
In my other dynasty draft, I only had 1 1st-round pick. It was a 7th pick. I didn't pick him because I had an early 2nd-round pick. I was hoping he would have fell, but no. Someone picked him in the 1st round. So I at least have him in one of my dynasty picks. I think he is going to be a fantasy football monster, especially running, catching the ball, some of the things he does. I think there is enough meat to go around between him and Tyrone Tracy as far as fantasy football relevancy. So again, watch out for that New York Giants backfield, man. I am so excited.
Definitely going to be dangerous, and Russ provides a massive upgrade from Danny Dimes. Again,
we're not going to mention his name. Danny's gone.
And extended him too.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
No, we want this guy. But the last steal that I got to talk about, we talked about him at the top of the show, but it's Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round. To have a player that talented fall to the 5th, yes, he has some concerns with holding on to the ball too long, taking unnecessary sacks, trying to play hero ball, but he is a very accurate quarterback, doesn't commit too many turnovers, he's safe with the ball, and you don't always see that in a 5th-round pick. And
right,
it just felt weird because the Browns already took Dylan Gabriel, but I still think it's a steal. They have a really, really weird quarterback room. That's something that we'll touch on in a future show, like who's sticking around, because they got 5 guys. Feels like Deshaun Watson's the odd man out there with his atrocious contract and really bad play for the money he's making. Definitely interesting to see that play out. But Jason, do you have any other steals to talk about, or are we going to keep it rolling?
that Cleveland Browns quarterback room, I want to see that on Hard Knocks, because you talk about with like you got 157-year-old Joe Flacco, you got Watson, you got Gabriel, now you got Sanders. Party on! Oh my goodness gracious, that is, please put that on Hard Knocks. That is going to be some good stuff. But all seriousness,
Forgot about Kenny Pickett.
Is he even? Yeah, we did.
Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I mean, who? But for all seriousness, Sanders, be humble, my man. Be humbled by this experience. Go in there and learn and be coached. Don't be afraid to be coached, man, because you have a chance. If Cleveland falls in love with you, that's some of the greatest sports fans in the country. They love those Cleveland Browns. And if you become a star to them and you humble yourself and they fall in love with you and wrap their arms around you, they will cheer you to the nth degree, man. So please humble yourself, my man. Let's go. No, we can keep it rolling, man. We can go all day. There were some great steals in this draft. This draft was a lot of fun. I love that live 4-hour night we did together. It was a lot of great picks, a lot of surprises, and there's going to be some steals. But that's the exciting part about the NFL is a lot of the big steals you won't see until the season starts. I mean, you get a Puka Nacua all of a sudden show up that nobody ever heard of, comes out of left field. So this is what's great about the NFL and about the draft. You start getting into the regular season, you can kind of go back and go, man, they got this kid at what? And then all of a sudden, boom. So let's keep it rolling, man.
Alrighty. And we're talking about which teams had the best drafts. And Jason, I told you ahead of time I was going to find a way to talk about the Carolina Panthers on this show. And I think they had a really, really good draft. Obviously, 8th overall, they get Ted McMillan out of Arizona. Bryce Young needs more weapons to throw to. Adam Thielen's getting a little old. They brought in Hunter Renfrow as well. I really, really like that signing.
Right.
He missed last season. He was having health issues, ulcerative colitis, but he's back now. Really good route runner. He can get open. Just a lot like a younger Adam Thielen kind of player in terms of skill set. So I really, really like that. McMillan's a big body wide receiver. He's going to be a great red zone threat for Bryce Young. And then with their next 2 picks in the 2nd and 3rd round, you get Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M and Princely. Oh, dear Lord. I should have rehearsed this. But, yeah, Princely edge out of Ole Miss. Scorton's great against the run. Princely, phenomenal athlete, good pass rusher. So you address 2 major needs on that defensive line. Love to see it with their next pick, Trevor Etienne, running back out of Georgia. Jonathan Brooks, probably going to miss all of this season, tore his ACL again. You hate to see that. I still really like Brooks. I hope he can bounce back. 4th round, 20th pick in that round, you get Lathan Ransom of safety out of Ohio State. Great against the run, super hard tackler. He's going to be a great addition to a secondary that really struggled. And anything the Panthers can do to be better against the run, I am all for it. They were the worst team against the run last year. So that's what you want to see. And then 5th round, you get Cam Jackson, a nose tackle out of Florida. I really, really like that pick. When it happened, I was like, I kind of wish they got some offensive line depth there. But the more I think about it, the more I think that Cam Jackson would be a really nice pairing with Derek Brown, because Ejiro Evero likes to run the 3-4, and Jackson has the potential to be that starting nose tackle for him. You got a couple of good veterans in that they just signed to sit and learn from. You can get a few reps in here and there. Incredibly powerful bull rush. He's 6'6", 300-something pounds. Absolute monster of a human being. And then 5th round, 27th pick, you get Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. Another weapon for Bryce Young to throw to, but this is the one pick where I'm like, this really should have been an offensive lineman. I think you had Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State there, who would have provided some good depth. Or you could get a linebacker in Chris Paul Jr., who I really, really like. I think he went to the Rams. He has the potential to do really good things there. Rams seem to just be finding defensive gems left and right. And I think Chris Paul Jr. could be the next gem. And then in the 6th round, you get Jimmy Horn Jr., wide receiver out of Colorado. I like his potential as a returner and just a solid depth piece. And you got a lot of good veterans in that wide receiver room to learn from.
Yep.
But the Panthers really, really had a good draft class. I love what they did. But Jason, what's one team that you think had a great draft class?
I mean, I got to rep my New York squad, man. I cannot.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about getting Abdul Carter in the 3rd pick. I'm so glad they did not trade away or do anything crazy. This guy is going to be an absolute stud in the NFL. Our defense was good, last year. It is going to be great this year. So you talk about adding Abdul Carter. Phil Simms gave him the blessing. Looks like he might wear number 11. It's still not set in stone yet, but be prepared. He might be number 11 in New York. So to get him at the 3rd overall, phenomenal pick. He is going to be a game wrecker. And then to, of course, trade in and get Jackson Dart. So not only do you shore up that defense, you now get a quarterback for your future in Jackson Dart, which is a great pick. Bold move. We'll see if that pays off. But they needed to do something because that quarterback room is not it is not a 3-5 year room. This is only a couple years in that room, and then that's it. So Jackson Dart was definitely needed. But to then go out and get Darius Alexander out of Toledo, a great defensive lineman, man. Again, our defense is going to be disgusting this year. So now you got Dexter Lawrence, Sexy Dexy on that, Kayvon Thibodeau. Holy cow, who is going to stop it? When we needed to do that NFC East, minus the Cowboys, is a juggernaut because the Commanders and what they're doing with Daniels
together. Finally. You still got the Philadelphia Eagles, a returning Super Bowl champion. So you had to do something in this draft, and they shored it up. Then turned around in the 4th round and got Cam Scatterbo, who, again, I am in love with. I think he is going to be a star and a stud in this league. Watch out, CMC part 2 or CMC 2.0 maybe. I really like what they did in the 5th round, man. Go and get Marcus Membo, offensive tackle. They needed offensive line help. Their offensive line has been suspect even before Danny Dimes, all the way back to while Eli was ending his career. They've always had issues with the offensive line. They went out and spent money on free agency. It didn't work. They traded. They tried to get guys in here. It didn't work. So I'm hoping that Membo, that's a great pickup in that 5th round, man. Kid out of Purdue. He's going to be great for them, and I think that was an awesome pick there in the 5th round. Round 7, Thomas Fedone, the 2nd. Get out and get a big body tight end. Not only a good pass catcher, but again, big body, someone that could clog that offensive line up a little bit. You pair him with Theo Johnson, who you got last year out of Penn State. So now you got a 2 tight end set who can both catch the ball. So now you got more weapons to deal with. You also have some big bodies that can move people out of the way for Tracy and Scatterbo to get through that line. I'm digging that, man. And then you went out and got Corey Black, cornerback out of Oklahoma State. So I am super excited about what the Giants did, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We have some offensive weapons. I would have liked to maybe seen a wide receiver sprinkled in there. I know there's been whispers about maybe Keenan Allen coming to the Giants, who that would be a great veteran presence to help Malik Neighbors. Go Giants, man. I am super excited about the draft that they had. That defense is going to be the best defense in the NFL this year. Yes, I said it. Wow.
Write it down. Take a picture.
Bold.
Here we go. New York Giants. Let's go.
That's bold. We'll definitely be coming back to that come middle of September for sure. But they've got the potential to be a phenomenal unit. The Darius Alexander pick, I hate that it slipped my mind because I would have mentioned that in steals. I think he's got great value at the top of the 3rd round. And I love some good group of 5 players. As someone who went to school at a group of 5 program, I always got to shout those guys out. But another team that I want to talk about that I think just got great value at every single pick they had was the Raiders. You got Ashton Genty dropping to 6th Shout out Cody, Raiders fan. You got Jack Besh at the 26th pick in the second round. I love that pick so much. Besh knows how to get open. He is a crisp route runner. That is going to be a great addition for this new look Las Vegas Raiders. And then in the third, you get Darian Porter, corner out of Iowa State. Also, later in the third, you go back-to-back at offensive tackle with Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech and Charles Grant out of William and Mary. Can't go wrong with that. Got to build up the offensive line. And then with the sixth pick in the fourth round, you get an absolute speedster in Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee. That's another weapon for Geno to use.
Yep.
Then you get Tonka Hemingway, good defensive tackle out of South Carolina. J.J. Pigs, DT out of Ole Miss. I really love what the Raiders are doing. Then in the sixth round, you go Tommy Mellott, who was a quarterback at Montana State, but he was inconsistent as a passer, so he's going to be like a Taysom Hill kind of gadget player, throw him at wide receiver, little bit of running back, because he was a phenomenal rusher at Montana State. I actually watched a few of their games in the FCS championship tournament. He was a lot of fun to watch. I'm super excited to see what he can do. And then they got Cam Miller, quarterback out of North Dakota State, who's just, he could be a solid backup and maybe make roster, but obviously as a sixth-round pick, hard to make the roster, but Cam Miller could do it, and I really like that draft for the Raiders. Jason, who's another team that you want to talk about?
I kind of throw them in there, man, but I think the Chargers really hit some great players in this draft. You talk about a team that really needed to make a splash right now, really underperforms, tons of potential, but never really lives up to it. And Harbaugh needed to do something. You know, the Khaki King himself wants to get that football team to be a contender. So getting Amarian Hampton in that first round, again, stud running back, I think that's just going to help Herbert in that offense. So you go out in that first round, you get a stud running back, and then the second round you go get Trey Harris out of Miss. I think he's going to be a dynamic wide receiver for them. Look, Quentin Johnson couldn't catch a cold last year. They need someone to catch the football. I love Ladd McConkey, Ladd the Impaler. Dude, he is a stud in the NFL. I think he's going to be top 5 wide receiver next year. So watch out for Ladd McConkey. But they needed some help there, and they got that getting Trey Harris. Then going out and getting Jameer Caldwell, defense, had, throw some people on defense. Kyle Kennard come at edge from Southern California. I can't even speak today. And then getting another wide receiver out of Auburn, Keandre Lambert-Smith. Again, needed wide receivers. They needed to get some help for Justin Herbert. And then I got to rep my Syracuse again, man. Aranda Gadsden II, son of Aranda Gadsden. I think tight end come out of the Q's. Great pick in that 5th round. He is a good route runner. He has NFL blood within inside of him. So I think that's just going to be a great target for Herbert. And then you got another offensive tackle in Brayson Taylor out of Pitt, who, again, you got to protect him. R.J. Mickens, safety out of Clemson. Great on the defensive side of the ball. And then I can't even say his name, but out of the 7th round, Terwickazy Bridge, another cornerback out of Florida. They just shored up the defense. They got offensive weapons. They got defensive weapons. So the Chargers needed to make some moves in this draft, and they did. So we'll see what they do with it. Again, they always fall short of expectations not San Diego, excuse me, but they need to get back to San Diego. In LA Chargers. But watch out for Harbaugh on that team. They retooled and reloaded, and I think they may have something special there.
Without a doubt, it's going to be a fun team to watch. And I got one more team that I need to mention, and it's the Bengals. They hit their needs on the head. They needed help at guard. They got 2 guards. You got Dylan Fairchild in the 3rd round, only gave up 1 sack his last season at Georgia. That is insane. At the SEC, to only give up 1 sack in a season. Incredibly impressive. Then in the 5th, you get Jalen Rivers, a guard out of Miami. the Bengals guard play was atrocious. Alex Kappa did not have a good season. And as we all know, the Bengals defense is what ultimately let them down. That's what caused them to miss the playoffs. And in the first round with the 17th pick, you get Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. He's great against the run. The Bengals need help there. Obviously needs to build up his pass rush skill set. But Jason, who better for Shamar Stewart to learn from than the man who led the NFL in sacks in Trey Hendrickson? Obviously, the Bengals still need to work out an extension, but if Stewart can play with Hendrickson for a few years, that is going to be so phenomenal for his development as a pass rusher. I love that pick so much for the Bengals. Then in the second round, they got Demetrius Knight Jr., a linebacker out of South Carolina. That's a guy I really, really like. A little bit older, so you may not see too much development out of him, but he's got a really high floor. And the Bengals need players like that, in all honesty. Their defense is too bad to just gamble on guys who have sky-high ceilings and really low floors. Knight's got a really high floor. Then in the fourth round, you get Barrett Carter out of Clemson, another linebacker. He's going to be a good middle linebacker. I'm a little surprised he fell that far. He's going to be great. I have high hopes. Not saying he'll definitely be great. He has the potential to be great. And then in the sixth round, you get Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech, a running back. That can't hurt. Brooks is really good as a pass blocker, and Joe Burrow needs all the protection he can get. And Taj Brooks provides that. He also adds good depth at the running back position. But Jason, do you have any other teams you want to talk about, or is that going to do it for this show?
I think that would do it. I do want to there's a couple of teams I think that fell short this year in the draft. 49ers. I mean, you let half your team go and didn't really make any splashes in the draft. It was kind of a quiet draft for them. The Dallas Cowboys. You have the Giants making moves. I would have expected them to make some bigger moves and to make a bigger splash there. I know they got some great picks, but
they had some really good picks. I'm a fan.
I was waiting for the splash. Jerry Jones usually makes a splash.
Those were all good. Tyler Booker, you got to get a replacement for Zach Martin. They love their offensive lineman named Tyler. Donovan Ezeriku out of Boston College, phenomenally productive. Siobhan Revel that we touched on earlier, great value in the third round. Jaden Blue, running back out of Texas. I absolutely love that. And then Phil Moffa, another running back in the seventh round. That's good too.
Not used to you talking nice about the Cowboys, man. It's
I know,
a little weird. What are you doing?
It feels weird. And Jason, to throw you off, I do want to talk about the Saints. Obviously, super easy to point and laugh at them taking Tyler Shuck, 40th overall. Old quarterback out of Louisville. Yes, he's got great size. He has the size you want as a quarterback. He's going to be a good pocket passer, but he has an extensive injury history, and he's old, and he's inexperienced. That's not a great combination of traits to have in a quarterback prospect. So 40th overall, kind of insane. I really like their Danny Stutzman pick, linebacker out of Oklahoma in the fourth round. Devin Neal in the sixth out of Kansas. That's good too. And then a Syracuse guy, Fadil Diggs in the seventh. That's really good. And obviously Kelvin Banks, ninth overall. I really, really like that pick as well. So the Saints did do some good stuff outside of the Tyler Shuck pick, 40th overall.
All right, now you really got me worried. You just said some positive stuff about the Saints. Now I'm scared.
That's it. Never
Aaron,
again.
what are you doing, man? What are you doing? But no, the Saints, that quarterback pick, the Saints with that quarterback pick was a stunner. For them to not take Sanders, whether he wanted to go there or not, and that's whole nother story about places he wanted to go and was playing that game. But some of the quarterbacks I even talked about in the seventh round with Ewers, with McCord, I thought those were some better quarterbacks than Tyler. Carr is pretty much, I think he's pretty much done in there. And the Saints really don't have any other weapons. Shaheed, Kamara's past his prime. So, I mean, the Saints really didn't, again, they just didn't make a splash. I don't know how many weapons they're going to have. It's just very curious on what they're doing down there in New Orleans. I don't have to worry about them. They're not in the NFC East. So you guys got to worry about them there in the Panthers. As long as your Panthers beat them, I think you're good.
Yeah. And look, They had some good picks, but overall, I'm not really worried about them remotely. You got Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck battling out for the starting quarterback. Not remotely concerned about that
No.
whatsoever. I've got high hopes for the Panthers going into the season. Jose saying Saints dropped the ball. They definitely did overall. Yes, I hit on some good picks, but they didn't really address all the needs. Like Jason said, they need to get more weapons. Kamar's getting up there in age. They don't really got a lot of guys to throw the ball to. Well, you're not putting these young quarterbacks in the best situation, but
no,
that'll do it for this episode of the Gridiron Address. Jason, thanks for coming on. Do you have any last words before we go off?
No, you can also check me out 3 from Deep Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays at 12. The NBA playoffs are heating up. Dude, I always love coming on here talking football with you, man. I appreciate it. It's always a great time. Thank you very much, guys. Again, Boom Broadcasting, like and subscribe. You got to get on, man. If you're not getting on, you're missing the train, man. Let's go. And may the 4th be with you.